Bottom of the hour here on Get Up. Jewelry time. The Eagles Super Bowl rings are available, and it's all smiles. Look at Philadelphia,
bro.
Now, Jalen Hurts, his ring is still in the case. Take a look at that. You like that? He's got that in the case there. Good celebration.
Beautiful.
But it does bring us to our next conversation. Has Jalen made his case to solidify himself as one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL? It would seem the obvious answer is yes. Cam Newton likes to say things that aren't obvious. Here's what he said on his podcast.
It's hard for me to grade Jalen Hurts with the metrics that with the talent that he has around him. Hurts does not have to play elite for the Philadelphia Eagles to win. We're not asking you to win the game. We're just asking you not to lose it. But when you ask that question, are we winning because of you, solely because of you? Or is it the resources around you? So game changer, game manager, those are the things that you have to ask yourself. And those are the metrics that I'm going off of.
Okay, so here we are again with this. We did this last offseason with Cam, and we're doing it again. Do you feel, though, that response is disrespectful to Jalen Hurts?
We have to stop allowing people to have excuses to disrespect Jalen Hurts. Cam recently said I was playing things safe, so let me cook for a second here, right? So there's different ways to look at it. Historically and presently, Jalen Hurts is the top 10 quarterback, and you're going to look at it different ways. You're going to look at talents above X's and O's, the ability to help your team win, and then to me, it's proximity to the GOAT. Let's take Cam Newton, right? What made Cam Newton great? He could be powerful in short yardage and goal line. He could extend plays with his legs. He was this big physical presence. So is Jalen Hurts, right? Cam Newton went to the playoffs 4 times. Jalen Hurts been to the playoffs 4 times already. Cam Newton went to 3 Pro Bowls. Jalen Hurts already been to 2. Cam Newton was an MVP, and he got to the Super Bowl, and he forgot to bring his cape. When Jalen Hurts is going to the Super Bowl, he's brought his cape, and he's also brought the Avengers with him, who are not even in D.C. They in Marvel, right? And so now let's think about this. Okay, let's go to winning. Eli Manning is going to be a Hall of Famer. Why is Eli Manning going to be a Hall of Famer? Because he had 2 epic runs to the Super Bowl. And in those Super Bowls, he played great, and he beat the GOAT not only of that time, but the GOAT of the era, right? But he's only been to 4 Pro Bowls. He never got an MVP vote. He was never an All-Pro. Jalen Hurts has done all of those things. Right now let's look at Jalen Hurts in this time. In the Super Bowl, how do we measure every quarterback in the AFC? What is your proximity to Patrick Mahomes? You know the 3 quarterbacks that beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs? I know who they are. They're Joe Burrow, they're Tom Brady, and they're Jalen Hurts. And not only did Jalen Hurts beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl, he outplayed him in the Super Bowl. And so now, here is what I think. If you don't want to count Jalen Hurts in your top 10, I have one question. Who's in the top 10? And how do you get there? And the last thing is this, right? Cam Newton is using excuses to not put Jalen Hurts in the top 10. Excuses are tools of incompetence that build monuments of nothingness, and those who major in their usage are non-achievers. The ring that Jalen Hurts is walking around with says top 10 to me. Tell Cam to show you his.
Wow. I love the quote, so make sure that you get me that.
I got to break that one down when I get to
Second, no, here's the thing. I think I agree with almost everything you're. Well, I think I agree in principle with everything you're saying. The one thing that we do sometimes do, and maybe I'm guilty of this as well, is say if you take that quarterback out and plug another one into that situation, wouldn't he also be really good? Wouldn't they also look really good? They have 2 of everything, as we joked last year in Philadelphia. That is not. It's not fair to hold that against Jalen Hurts. He is on the team that he is on. He's been there as they've built this thing. Mm-hmm. That's the only way I could see trying to question him at all, is to say a lot of quarterbacks might look really good with all that around him.
Yeah, there's another very fundamental reason to really like and admire Jalen Hurts. Everything RC said I agree with, but more fundamentally than that, we always say coming out of the draft, the Tate sets the floor, character sets the ceiling. This was a guy that was fired in college. He had a transfer. He was a bottom of the second-round pick. I thought he was a third-rounder. He was fundamentally inaccurate. His first year in the NFL, he completed 52%. Last year, he was 68%, and he led the NFL in completions above expectations. When you make a weakness a strength and combine it with everything else that RC talked about, the physicality in the run game, you have a superstar. And when you talk about the Super Bowl, he outplayed Mahomes twice. They are 1-1. I don't know what else he would have to do not to be considered even a top 5 quarterback. We could talk about the consistency of the Philadelphia passing game early on, but we talked about Kansas City. They may take a little time to get going. So when you look at any objective criteria and skill development, how can you not root for this guy and give him what he's earned, which is he is a Super Bowl winner on a great team who makes everybody around him better.
What you want out of your quarterback is you want someone who can make the play when you need it most.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts playing his best in big games means something. That's all we want all these quarterbacks to do every single year we come on these shows. And also, to your point, Mike T, this is a guy you root for, and it doesn't matter if you root for him, but he gets better year after year, every year we've seen him. Criticism is only fair as if you adjust it whenever you get more information. And when you look at Jalen Hurts, he's played in 2 Super Bowls. There's only been 21 other quarterbacks in NFL history that have started and played in 2 Super Bowls, and 17 of them will be in the Hall of Fame, and Russell Wilson will be a debate of whether or not he gets in or not. So that means something so early in Jalen Hurts' career.
The only thing about, I don't want to be on the other side of this because I don't want to be in the position of downgrading what Jalen Hurts has done because I think he's been terrific. And obviously, he was brilliant in last year's playoffs. But I do think there were questions about if we're ranking him amongst the top players at his position right now. Certainly, there's a small handful of guys you would take ahead of him immediately, right? Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, et cetera.
The AFC 4.
And then but you could keep going. Like, would you take the kid in Washington right now ahead of him? If you're starting a team right now?
If you're starting a team right now, yes.
Which of those 2 guys would you take?
But that was the 5 when you look at what the executives and the coaches said. Those were the top 5. It was the 4 guys in the AFC and then Jaden Daniels.
Right.
And Jaden Daniels being younger, Jaden Daniels bringing a team to the NFC Championship after picking 2nd overall. That matters. I get that. But there's also guys like Justin Herbert. Just tell me why. Right? Is it the tantalizing talent? Is it the fact that he has the big arm, that he's 6'6"? I also watched him be up 27-0 and lose a game in Jacksonville. Right? To a team that absolutely tanked afterwards. And so I understand that there are going to be different reasons why people choose to put someone in their top 10. In my top 10, you have to go win. In my top 10, you have to continue to get better.
Mike Drop is about a new quarterback in the NFC North. What do you have?
Greeny, J.J. McCarthy will make everyone forget about Sam Darnold and the Twin Cities. Let me tell you why. Look at the interior offensive line. They went out and signed Will Freeze, Ryan Kelly, drafted Donovan Jackson in the 1st round. So we can talk about Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, on and on and on. Great offensive line, good experience in the offseason with Kevin O'Connell. He will play really well his second year.
RC, I'm fascinated by this one because he opens on a Monday night standalone game on the road in the division against Chicago. That'll be a battle. We'll come back to it. Meanwhile, Mike T, your next Mike Drop. How about a prediction about an NFC Championship team? Who do you like?
Right here, Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Greeny, they've won the NFC South 4 consecutive years. They were 4th in the NFL in points, and they went out and drafted Emeka Egbuka in the 1st round. This team has way better offensive players than we realize. Hassan Reddick is going to have to help on the pass rush. They are under the radar.
Baker Mayfield and the Bucs to the NFC Championship. Last one, Mike T. Let's talk about Mike T.
The more I think about Greeny, I think we're on the precipice of this being Mike Tomlin's last year, and let me tell you why. This feels like Andy Reid in 2012 with the Philadelphia Eagles, a very amicable departing of a Hall of Fame coach. We think about Nick Foles and Michael Vick, the quarterback there, and the more I think about Aaron Rodgers and the data, it's almost impossible to me that he will play well at 42 years old. And when we really strip it down, and Darius gave me a great stat, if we go back over the last 3 years, we have a great graphic here, he was 26th, look at this, in yards per attempt and 29th in QBR since 2022. The only players that were worse than him were Ryan Tannehill, Bryce Young, Mac Jones, and Will Levis. That's my mic drop.
So that's not great company that he's been keeping. I will grant you that. I will say
that was good.
The New York Jets presented a variety of obstacles that he had to try and overcome that he, theoretically at least, will not have to deal with in Pittsburgh. I hear what you're saying, and RC, you've said many times it may be time for him to have his Andy Reid moment, to go find his Kansas City, his next stop, where he gets matched up with the great young quarterback, and all of a sudden, Andy Reid goes from being a really great coach to being in the discussion with the greatest coaches of all time. I could see it going that way. However, I'm a lot more optimistic about what this Steelers season is going to be.
The Pittsburgh Steelers won't be Andy Reid's last year in Philadelphia bad this year. I don't believe this is a team that wins 4 or 5 games. I'm going to read something to y'all, and I want y'all just to listen to what this list sounds like. Batch, Dixon, Leftwich, Vick, Jones, Hodges, Rudolph, Trubisky, Wilson, Fields, Pickett. Those are quarterbacks that have started for the Pittsburgh Steelers outside of Ben Roethlisberger during Mike Tomlin's tenure, and he still never had a losing season. He is allergic to losing. And if you look at the way this team has approached this year, they're not approaching rebuilding by being bad. They're going to go all in next year to get their quarterback, but they're trying to build a roster that can win, and they want them to experience winning. They want them to build the habit of winning, and I believe Aaron Rodgers is just the quarterback this year to do that. The one thing about what Pittsburgh was when we won 2 Super Bowls is we didn't have a quarterback who had to lead. We didn't have a quarterback who had to direct. We had a quarterback who had to play big in big moments.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Aaron Rodgers has to do. He can still throw it. We watched the movement get better throughout last season. Yep. And I heard Hawk say something last week that I thought was not Hawk, it was Harry Douglas said something last week that was very profound. He said, when you listen to him talk about Robert Saleh, he always called him Robert. Every time he talks about Mike Tomlin, he calls him Coach Tomlin. Even that small piece is a different dynamic walking into the building.
And he has to do less. Like, to your point, like, he's coming into a situation where he doesn't have to be the head coach. He doesn't have to be the general manager. He doesn't have to be the mouthpiece in the media getting people excited about a franchise and organization. You cannot dig your best hole by digging 10 holes at a time. And when you look at Aaron Rodgers and what he is tasked to do, which is be a quarterback, and you look at the organization and the moves they made to make this team better, it does align. They're not looking to go get a quarterback of the future by being bad and being in a good position in the draft. No, they've collected assets. We're going to go win. We're going to still go all in. And if we have to move to go get our quarterback in the following year, we will. I think they win a playoff game. Aaron Rodgers is approaching this like his last season, his love of football, and I think when you do less, you will result in more.
Guys, I understand all that, but I will tell you from a front office perspective, one of the big mistakes I made, and it's human nature, is you acquire Aaron Rodgers, you get excited, and maybe he catches lightning in the bottle, but you really have to pay a player and have a role for him for what he's going to do, not what he's been. And all I'm saying is it's been 3 years since he's played like Aaron Rodgers, and all I'm saying is, guys, you're both former players. He's going to be 42 years old. Only Drew Brees and Tom Brady are the only 2 quarterbacks in the history of football to start a playoff game at that age. And all I'm saying is when you think about it that way, it's highly unlikely that he's going to take 3 years worth of one trend and just just switch it this season.
Yeah. The biggest thing is this, though. Those 2 names that you said, obviously Tom Brady stands alone in who he is. Right. Aaron Rodgers' names belong with those names.
When you look at quarterbacks above 40, he's probably closer to that than whatever the other list is.
On this Monday morning.
Quarterback Shedeur Sanders will be the Cleveland Browns starter by their Week 9 bye week. You heard it. Look, they got a lot of quarterbacks in that building. But I think that the voice from the fans is going to get louder and louder as the season goes on. I think we know who Kenny Pickett is. We know who Joe Flacco is. And I think Shedeur supplants Dylan Gabriel.
You were nodding along as he was saying that, Tannenbaum.
Start him sooner. You have 2 first-round picks next year. You need to know what you have in Shedeur Sanders. He's a better prospect than Dylan Gabriel, their 3rd-round pick. Trade Kenny Pickett. Joe Flacco is your bridge quarterback. Let's see what we have in Shedeur, who's a very talented quarterback.
You agree? I like that, and I think he should start earlier. Obviously, you're going to start with the veteran to see what this team has, but as the season progresses, as you start to be more comfortable with Shedeur Sanders at practice and the way that he's handling himself in the building, he should become the starter because you need to know if he could be your guy going forward.
All right, speaking of rookie quarterbacks, Tannenbaum, give me an opening statement.
Jaxson Dart will be starting by October 1st, I think even sooner.
That is very specific.
And he will save Brian Daboll's job. His 41 starts in college will give him the necessary experience to hit the ground running. I think he exceeds expectations, tamps the noise down with the Giants, and Brian Daboll returns in 2026.
Well, I think the first thing is they clearly had to like Jaxson Dart above all the other quarterbacks in the draft outside of Cam Ward. And if there's something special there between Brian Daboll and Jaxson Dart, I think you have to play him. You're not playing him just to save your job. You're playing him because if you believed in him enough to draft him, there has to be a way that he could spark this offense. They're going to have an excellent pass rush, and that will keep him in games. If Jaxson Dart can make some plays, maybe Brian Daboll saves his job.
Their offensive line is healthy, and that's been a problem the last few years. They have Malik Neighbors, who, in the right circumstance, might be as good as any receiver in the NFL. Could you see Jaxson Dart opening up some eyes this year?
I do think that could happen, right? Because also when you talk about Brian Daboll and saving his job, like, this is what this organization needs. They need hope. They need to be able to see a quarterback and say, hey, this is something we can build on. And without that, they probably will make a decision.
And also,
to go
like, let's not
direction.
split them up, right?
Let's not
It
split 'em
has
up.
to
Let
be
'em build
promising
together.
enough
Yep.
that they say, okay, let's let them build together. The guy he drafted, the guy who believed in him, and a coach that understands him.
All right, stay in the division. RC, give me a prediction here. Give me an opening statement.
This is simple. The Dallas Cowboys are going to the playoffs.
What?
Like, I'm tired of people the whole off season. I know Stephen A is going to have his cigar and his hat and all of those things. I think that they're a team who won 7 games last year, and that was without their starting quarterback, Dak Prescott. He says he feels healthier than ever. We know what George Pickens was in Pittsburgh, and now you add that to CeeDee Lamb and also Jake Ferguson at the tight end position while getting some veteran running backs with an offensive line that I believe should be improved this year.
Okay, well, you think they're going to the playoffs. As far as they're concerned, you're selling them short. Listen to Pro Bowl guard Tyler Smith, not shy about what he expects from Dallas this year.
Super Bowl champions. That's always the expectation. So, yeah.
You think that's a realistic goal?
I think it is a realistic goal because we can win the Super Bowl. Like, why not? Why can't we win? Do you think it's unrealistic?
You think the roster is in place to do that?
I think it is in place to do that, yes, sir.
Okay, so as you pointed out, I mean, the questions kept coming and he kept standing on it. But listen, we have heard Brian Schottenheimer say multiple times, that's our goal. We don't shy away from it. And look, it's everybody's goal, right? So there's nothing really wrong with saying it. It just sounds different coming out of Dallas because we micromanage literally everything they do, every word they say. But generally speaking, you guys were players. On July 20th, you think you're going to win the Super Bowl, right? And
Not everybody.
Not everybody?
That's a lie.
No.
That's a lie.
There are teams that they're on a 1-in-15 team. What did you guys think about July 20th?
I ain't gonna lie, I thought we were bringing it home. I thought,
Greeny.
I went to that season like, wait, to the Steelers, get a load of this, baby. Me and Brian Hartline are about to rip this place up.
But, okay, and I don't want to suggest that was delusional. But in Tyler Smith's case, there are a lot of reasons to have optimistic views. And we've gone over them. And with the Cowboys, so you know them like you know your own family. Dak Prescott is coming back healthy. They've got CeeDee Lamb. They made the huge acquisition of George Pickens. See, to me, that's what it all depends on. And here's the thing that makes me nervous. Mike Tomlin has proven he can work with every kind of mercurial wide receiver, right? He's had all these wide receivers with unique personalities. Let's use that as sort of a catch-all phrase. And in each case, he worked with them and they played great. This is the first time he punted. He gave up on one, and that makes me a little bit nervous.
So this is me telling you, right? Because I think that's a narrative that's been out about George Pickens. That's not why George Pickens is no longer in Pittsburgh.
Tell me.
When I think you saw a while back, right, there was an Instagram story where George Pickens, or a comment or something where he said, I asked to leave. I think that's more the story than what we're hearing or what people have built the narrative around people being quiet about why he's gone. George Pickens and Coach Tomlin had a relationship where I think Coach Tomlin told me I'm willing to work with him and watch him grow because I'm willing to develop young men. That wasn't the problem with George Pickens. The problem with George Pickens and what he felt and what I think the team felt is you bring in a guy in DK Metcalf who, while I'm in my last season, who's exactly like me. We do the same thing. We are both deep ball catchers. We are both 50-50 guys. Whoever has the one-on-one matchup is going to get the ball. Now I want to go to somewhere different. I don't even know if it would have been the Dallas Cowboys, but put me in the space where I can shine in my last year. Put me in the space where there won't be a duplicate of me on the other side with a quarterback I know I could trust, because at that time he didn't know, or his team didn't know, or whatever it was, that Aaron Rodgers would be the quarterback. And so I think unless you have, or we have, a fact that they finally punted on George Pickens, we should really look at the fact of, did it fit for George Pickens? Does it fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers? And it's moving on in the best interest of both parties.
Yeah, look, I think he's going to play well. Again, the old carrot, he's in the last year of his deal. Whatever George Pickens has, they'll get out of him. They're going to want to run the ball. We know that with Shoddy. But my concern is the other side of the ball. You brought up Kenneth Murray, which was a great acquisition, but they struggled on defense. Matt Eberflus will be better, but I just think their window has closed, and I think there's a superstar in Washington and Jaden Daniels. We talked about how good Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia is. I think those two teams draw a line, and it's Dallas, and that's why I think at the end of the day, they're improved, but they're on the outside looking in.
Come down to the offensive line and the defensive line, right? If you can check those two boxes, then you can get into what George Pickens means to this offense. Because to your point about being in Pittsburgh, where he's the number one guy, you know this, RC. When you're playing in the NFL, going against the number 1 corner and going against the number 2 corner are completely two different experiences, right? So now George Pickens is going to get one-on-one coverage against the team's second-best corner. He's going to have a big season. He's going to be a big threat down the field, which will make defenses respect both receivers deep on the outside, which probably does open up their run game, does open things up for Williams and Sanders and Dak Prescott to not feel like they're taking away my one option and I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah, you look at Dak too, though. He's coming off of a season where he's injured, right? And I talked to him this offseason as well. Like, this is a guy whose life has changed. He had his second baby. He finally, he and his wife are now married. Like, he's in a true grown man leadership role. And also, when these things start to happen, you start to realize I don't get to do this forever. And while I have an opportunity with 2 number 1 wide receivers, with, in my opinion, a top 5 pass-catching tight end and a run game that should be improved, now having Brian Schottenheimer, who had to learn to win football games with only a run game as an offensive coordinator with the New York Jets. I think that this offense is going to be dynamic. I believe they'll be explosive. Now can Matt Eberflus get the right stops or the right amount of stops to keep you in football games?
It is a blessing and a curse to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys because everything you do goes under a microscope. And yet somehow we have forgotten how good Dak Prescott was when last seen. A year ago, he got hurt. The year before that, the 2023 season, Dak Prescott threw for 4,500 yards, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and had a QBR, I'm scrolling, that was very high. I can't find it here.
Same thing.
I need a better.
He was second in MVP voting.
He was an MVP caliber quarterback. Yes. They've added a high-flying wide receiver to that. They maintained consistency with a new twist with their new coach in Brian Schottenheimer. I think people are sleeping on how good the Cowboys might be.
And they got a great guard in Tyler Booker. All that is great, but again, I always think, how do you win your division?
Yeah,
I just think
that's hard.
It's going to be very difficult. And then you think about the NFC North, and all of a sudden, like getting 7 teams in the playoffs from that conference, to me, that's where I think Dallas is going to struggle because are they as good as Green Bay? Are they as good as Minnesota? Are they as good as the second-place team out west? I don't know, and that's where, to me, like they're improved, but on the outside looking in.
No, it's a very logical way of looking at it. You think about the Philadelphia Eagles, we know that they're stacked. Jaden Daniels going into his second year, the defense being improved, being more stout up front. I think it is going to be difficult for the Dallas Cowboys. I just believe they are a better team than we're giving them credit for, and I think there's going to be a ton of improvement.
His QBR was 72.7, by the way.
Somebody told you?
No, I found it on the phone. It just took me a little while.
That's better than Aaron Rodgers this stuff.
It's infinitely better. I need Jack
and he was
to
there for the
my phone for me.
Yeah, exactly.